You want to never, ever, ever operate the machine while the lid is off, okay? And this is the lid here. Never, ever, ever turn it on while the lid is off. So here's how you know you're putting it in the right way. When you're facing this piece and it's on there properly, it will say the word oracle. You'll be able to read your kit. And I've already written on it, turn off and unplug before removing cover. So you place it in here. It's a little dodgy, but it goes under this metal piece back here. You can get a little closer, Janelle, if you.
Okay.
You see that metal bar? Mm-hmm. So the lid fits under there, and then you just make sure that both sides of it are sitting down inside the drum, and push it on. You have to get a little serious with it. Just gonna tell it who's boss. And then there's a little lock for the lid that you push on, and it's in there. And that protects, it does one of two things. It protects fingers from going into the drum, which spins. That's how you top it off. This drum here, which spins, and when motorized to plugged in and the machine's turned on, it is moving at lightning speed, many, many revolutions per minute. So one little finger in there, missing finger. I can't state how serious it is that you could miss a finger, bleed out, and die if you're not careful. I know that sounds crazy. I have never seen it happen, thank God, but it's very serious, so I want you really to take it seriously. Also, the plates, the blades on the drum are quite sharp just in and of themselves. They're a real thick stainless steel, and they have sharp edges, okay? So you always want to make sure before you turn the machine on that the lid is on, right? So it's not a cheap piece of equipment. To replace it, it will cost a lot of money, so we need to be kind to it. Couple things you need to know. There's a flexible lid here. You never want to open this either while the beater is going. The only real safe place to put your hands during the action is in this little reservoir here. And so you can see this one is not flexible, it won't lift up, and most of the reason is because the water comes streaming out of this side. The purpose of it, it fills with water, and the paper fiber and the water circulate through the whole kind of O-shaped oval thing here. And the force of the wheel makes the water and all the fibers turn and pass under that beater so that they can get beaten, all right? And as I mentioned last class, but I'll just reiterate here and I'll try to say it a few more times, the purpose of beating paper fibers, to some extent, is to shorten them a little bit, but the main purpose is to make them more likely to bind together because they want to form sheets of paper. And also the hydrogen molecule in the water molecule will attach itself to the cellulose fiber in the paper, and it makes the paper stronger in the long term. So paper pulp that's formed into sheets with shorter beating times have less tensile strength than a paper pulp that is beaten for a longer time. So some of your fibers are going to beat, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. We're going to start with Abaca today. And Abaca, after it's been beaten for an hour, is good to go. You can beat it longer and it'll be stronger. So it depends on exactly what you're going to do. If you're going to use it for a paper sculpture project or like a lampshade, you want it to be really strong. If you're using it for a book that's going to be handled gently and carefully, an hour of beating is fine. Another thing to know is the longer you beat, the more the paper shrinks when it dries. Okay, so that's something to consider. If you want the full-size sheet from the paper mold and decal you're using, you want to go with the shortest beating time that will give you the tensile strength that you're looking for. Okay, and part of what we're going to do in this class is experiment with beating times and fibers, compare notes with each other on what works and what kind of results you can get so that you can then apply the information that you gain to future projects. Does that make sense? Is it reasonable so far? We're going to go ahead and switch her on. Turn it. Yeah. She's noisy. It's not a little but sometimes it'll knock a little bit during beating because of, and you'll hear it once we start to add fiber. why the lid needs to be there, not just to protect us from the blaze on the drum, but also to keep the water and the fiber from going everywhere. And they're kind of going to get, it's going to get messy anyway. So we'll go with these pulps, this pulp that's here. This pulp has already been soaking for more than a day. So it's totally ready to go. And I'm just going to show you, you don't want to add a lot more water. So you're going to kind of strain by hand. You know, grab the pieces like this. Now, if your pulp has already been beaten for some time, you may need to strain it with a strainer, which you're going to find in the cupboards in the kitchen room. They're all labeled, so you'll find them. So as I'm putting a pulp in, I'm just going to toss it in. Make sure there's nothing thick. You want the fiber to float. So if it's not moving and floating, you may want to kind of pull it apart a little bit more. Make it a little bit smaller. Because if it's particularly waterlogged and it's quite thick, it will sink. You can hear that knocking a little bit. That's the fiber going through between the drum and the plate, the bed plate of the beater. It will start moving a little quicker, especially if it's kind of lighter and floating, but you can help it along a little bit. So you see how that kept moving even after it was turned on? I'm going to raise the roll just a little bit, have it make less contact with the plate.
Gotcha.
Okay. So less noisy. Well, less friction. Okay. Which usually leads to less noise. But noise isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like it's going to make some